Most people are hiding something, and it's not always in their words. It's in their tone, their actions, and the way they treat you when they think no one's watching. If you want to get ahead in life, learning how to read people is not just a skill, it's a superpower. I remember walking into a meeting once, and everyone was smiling, saying the right things. But something was off. You know that feeling when the words don't quite match the vibe? That was my clue. Right then I realized people are always communicating more than what's on the surface, the challenge, knowing how to pick up on it. Think about it. How much easier would life be if you could read what people are really thinking without them saying a word? Whether you're dealing with co-workers, friends, or family, being able to decode what's not being said can change the way you navigate relationships. In this video, we're diving deep into how to secretly read people, breaking down their actions, their silences, and those small, often unnoticed signals that reveal their true intentions. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll be able to understand people on a whole new level, ready to sharpen your instincts and unlock a new way of seeing the world. Let's get started. Lesson 1. The power of tell me more. Let's start with one of the most powerful yet simple techniques, the tell me more approach. It might sound almost too easy, but trust me, this method can give you an unbelievable amount of insight into what's going on in someone's mind without them even realizing it. Here's how it works. When someone is telling you a story, sharing an opinion, or even venting about a situation, instead of jumping in with your own thoughts or trying to counter their argument, you hit them with 3 little words. Tell me more. Those 3 words are like a key that unlocks everything. It doesn't matter if you're in a heated debate, a casual conversation, or even a business negotiation. Most people are so used to defending their points or trying to prove themselves that they don't expect you to just sit back and ask them to go deeper. It throws them off guard in a good way. Let me give you an example. A while back, I was arguing with a friend over something as ridiculous as whether pineapple belongs on pizza. I was ready to fire off my counterpoints, but instead I decided to try something different. I just smiled and said, "Tell me more." Before I knew it, the conversation shifted. He wasn't just talking about pizza anymore. He started sharing stories about family dinners, his childhood, and even some deep-rooted reasons why he hated pineapple in the first place. What started as a silly debate turned into a window into his personal world, all because I didn't interrupt. Here's the beauty of this approach. When people feel heard, they lower their guard. They start sharing more than they intended, motivations, fears, insecurities, without even realizing it. And all you have to do is listen. It's a tactic I've used everywhere, in business meetings, during tough conversations with friends, and even when I suspect someone's trying to be less than honest. The more you let them talk, the more they reveal. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about gathering information to win a conversation. It's about building a connection. Most people are so used to others talking over them, trying to make their own points, that when you actually stop and listen, it's a rare gift. It builds trust. It makes people feel understood. And when they feel that way, they'll reveal their true selves, often without even knowing they're doing it. So next time you're in a conversation, especially one that seems a little tense or where someone's holding something back, try it out. Just lean back and say, "Tell me more." You'll be amazed at what people will share with you and how much deeper the conversation will go. Lesson 2. Observe how they treat people in lower positions. Now let's move on to something that can reveal a person's true character more than any words ever could. Watching how they treat people in lesser positions. If you really want to understand someone, who they are when no one's looking, don't focus on how they interact with you or others on their level. Instead, Pay attention to how they treat the people they think don't matter as much, the waiter, the cashier, the receptionist. It's these small interactions that expose the core of someone's personality. You see, when people feel like there's nothing to gain, that's when their real self shows up. Think about it. Most people put on a good face when they're around peers, bosses, or anyone who can offer something in return. But how do they act when there's no social pressure to be polite, when the other person has no power or influence over them? That's where the truth comes out. Let me give you an example. I once worked with a guy who on the surface seemed like the friendliest person in the world. Charming, funny, always respectful in meetings. Everyone thought he was a great guy. But one day, we went out to lunch, and the moment we sat down at the restaurant, he turned into a completely different person. He barked orders at the waiter, barely made eye contact, and acted like the server was beneath him. That was the moment I knew the nice guy act was just that, an act. He wasn't genuinely kind. He was just good at playing the role when it benefited him. This happens more than you think. People show their true nature when they think no one important is watching. If they treat a waiter like they're invisible or snap at a cashier for a minor mistake, that's not just a slip-up. It's a reflection of how they see the world. They believe that if someone can't fight back or doesn't have anything to offer, they're not worth respect. And here's the thing, if they're doing it to the waiter or the janitor, sooner or later, that behavior is going to show up in your relationship with them, whether in business, friendships, or personal life. Stoicism teaches us to observe human behavior objectively, without getting caught up in the surface-level niceties. And this is one of the clearest indicators of someone's character. It's easy to be kind when you're trying to impress people, but the real test is how you act when there's nothing to gain, no one watching, and nothing at stake. This principle has become a kind of silent test for me. When I meet someone new, whether it's a friend, a colleague, or even a date, I pay close attention to how they treat the people around them who don't hold power. Do they say thank you to the person bagging their groceries? Do they acknowledge the bus driver or show patience when someone's struggling at their job? If they do, that's someone who respects others regardless of status. But if they're quick to dismiss or demean others, that's a huge red flag. And here's where it gets even deeper. How people treat others is often a reflection of how they see themselves. People who are secure and confident in who they are don't feel the need to put others down. They don't have to step on someone else to feel important, but those who are arrogant, rude, or dismissive, they're usually projecting their own insecurities, trying to elevate themselves by belittling those around them. So the next time you're with someone, watch how they interact with those in lesser positions. It's the quickest way to see beyond the mask and get a glimpse of who they truly are. The person who is kind, patient, and respectful, even when they don't have to be, is someone worth knowing. But if they can only be kind when they stand to gain something, it's a warning sign you can't afford to ignore. Remember, the way someone treats others when no one's looking is the truest reflection of their character. Keep that in mind, and you'll start seeing people for who they really are, not who they pretend to be. Lesson 3. Unlocking the past to understand the present. Next up, let's talk about a crucial insight into human behavior that many people overlook. Understanding someone's past to make sense of their present. You've probably heard the phrase, "the past is behind us." But here's the hard truth. It's not. People carry their past with them everywhere they go. Whether they realize it or not, their experiences, both good and bad, are shaping how they think, how they act, and how they treat others in the present. If you really want to understand someone on a deeper level, you need to look at the experiences that have shaped them. Now, This can be controversial because most people like to think they've moved on from their past, that they're living in the moment. But often, that's just not true. People's behaviors today are often echoes of past events, unresolved traumas, or victories that shaped their mindset. Understanding this gives you a huge advantage when it comes to reading people. You're not just seeing them in the here and now, you're seeing the patterns that explain why they react the way they do. For example, I had a friend who always seemed defensive, like they were ready to fight back at the slightest criticism. At first, I thought it was just part of their personality. Some people are just more on edge, right? But after getting to know them better, I learned about their past. They had been betrayed by close friends, gone through financial hardship, and grew up in an environment where they constantly had to prove themselves. Suddenly, it all made sense. Their defensiveness wasn't just a random quirk. It was a shield they had developed over years of needing to protect themselves from being hurt. This is where it gets interesting. People's reactions, insecurities, and even their approach to relationships often stem from unresolved issues in their past. Someone who grew up feeling neglected might crave constant attention as an adult. A person who was betrayed in a business deal may struggle to trust anyone in future partnerships. These behaviors don't just happen out of nowhere. They're deeply rooted in past experiences that have left an imprint on who they are today. But here's the important part. Understanding someone's past doesn't mean making excuses for their behavior. If someone is being toxic or hurtful, it's not your job to tolerate it just because they've had a rough history. What it does mean is that you gain clarity about why they're acting the way they do. When you know someone's past, you can better predict their actions, understand their fears, and even protect yourself from getting drawn into their unresolved issues. This concept plays out in all kinds of relationships, romantic, professional, and personal. Have you ever dated someone who seemed fine at first, but then, over time, certain patterns started to emerge? Maybe they were overly jealous or had trouble committing. 9 times out of 10, if you dig deep enough, you'll find their behavior is tied to something in their past. Maybe they've been cheated on before or dealt with abandonment, and now they're stuck in a loop, reacting out of fear of getting hurt again. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, and part of that observation is understanding that people are often reacting to echoes from their past, not just the present moment. When you understand that, it doesn't mean you let them off the hook, but it allows you to see the full picture. You're no longer just dealing with their current behavior. You're seeing the layers beneath it, the experiences that have shaped them. Here's where it gets even deeper. Once you understand these patterns, you can sometimes help people break free from them. By gently pointing out the cycles they're stuck in, you might help them become more self-aware. Maybe they've been living on autopilot, repeating behaviors from their past without even realizing it. If you can bring it to their attention, you may help them confront what they've been avoiding for years. That's one of the key principles of Stoicism: self-reflection and continuous improvement. Sometimes understanding someone's past can be the first step in helping them become better versions of themselves. But don't forget, this isn't about trying to fix people. Your goal is to protect yourself and understand others better. Seeing the past as a key to someone's behavior helps you navigate relationships more effectively. It gives you the insight to know when to lean in with empathy and when to step back to protect your own boundaries. So when you meet someone who acts defensively, seeks constant validation, or has trouble trusting, consider the possibility that their behavior is rooted in something deeper. Their past isn't just behind them. It's right there in front of you, influencing their every move. When you start seeing people through this lens, you can approach relationships with more empathy, more awareness, and a clearer understanding of how to protect yourself from being caught up in someone else's unresolved issues. In the end, the past is never truly gone. It shapes how we all behave in the present. To really understand someone, you need to see their whole story, not just the chapter they're currently living in. And once you do, everything starts to make more sense. Lesson 4. Tone changes reveal more than words. Now let's get into a key signal most people often ignore: sudden changes in tone. It might not seem like much, but the way someone speaks, their tone, their pace, even the pauses between words, can reveal more about their truth than the actual words themselves. When people lie, hide something, or feel uncomfortable, their voice often betrays them. They can try to mask their words, but subtle shifts in tone give you insight into what's really going on beneath the surface. Here's how it works. When someone is speaking confidently and honestly, their tone is usually steady, their words flow naturally, and they have a consistent pace. You've probably noticed this in conversations with people who are relaxed and at ease. They sound clear and composed, but the moment someone tries to deceive or cover something up, it's like their body rebels against their mind. Their tone may shift unexpectedly, their voice may crack, or their speech may slow down unnaturally. These are signs that their mind is struggling to keep up with the lie or the half-truth they're telling. Stoicism teaches us the value of observation without judgment, and this is the perfect opportunity to apply that principle. Instead of reacting emotionally to what someone is saying, focus on how they're saying it. By staying calm and objective, you can catch these subtle cues, sudden changes in tone, nervous laughter, or awkward pauses. It's a powerful way to read people because their voice is often out of sync with the message they're trying to convey. This dissonance is where the truth leaks out. I remember a coworker who always knew exactly what to say and always delivered it with charm and confidence. But during a critical project discussion, something changed. We were talking about deadlines, and suddenly his voice dropped. He started stuttering slightly. His usual smooth delivery was gone, and there was a noticeable hesitation. That shift in tone set off alarm bells. Sure enough, it turned out he hadn't made any progress on the project, but was trying to cover it up. His tone betrayed him before his words did. Here's why this happens. When people lie or feel uncertain, their mind and body go into conflict. They're trying to maintain control over the conversation, but deep down, their subconscious knows something isn't right. That internal tension manifests in their voice, either as a higher pitch, a quickened pace, or a pause that feels too long. It's like their subconscious is throwing up red flags, hoping you'll notice. But it's not just about catching lies. Tone changes also signal hesitation or discomfort. Let's say you're making plans with a friend who seems excited about everything at first, but then you suggest doing something they're not really interested in, and suddenly their voice shifts. What was once enthusiastic becomes flat or monotone. It's a subtle but real sign they're not on board, even if they say they are. The shift in tone tells you what their words aren't. In romantic relationships, business negotiations, or even casual conversations, these tone shifts reveal far more than you'd expect. People can say the right things, but their voice often betrays their true feelings. If someone is suddenly quieter, overly cheerful, or pausing too much, it's a sign to dig deeper. They might be uncomfortable with the topic, hiding something, or even just unsure about what they're saying. And here's where Stoicism gives you an edge. When you observe these changes without immediately reacting, you give yourself the power to see the situation for what it is. Stoicism teaches us to remain calm and composed, especially when others are not. When someone's tone shifts, don't jump to conclusions or respond emotionally. Instead, take a mental note and keep listening. Often, the more they talk, the clearer their discomfort becomes. This also applies to yourself. Stoicism emphasizes self-awareness, and the same principle holds true when reflecting on your own tone. How often have you said something you didn't fully believe and noticed your voice falter? Maybe it was a white lie, a forced cheerfulness, or trying to cover up something you weren't ready to admit. Just like others, when your thoughts, words, and actions are out of alignment, it shows up in your voice. Your tone becomes the mirror of your inner conflict. Stoicism teaches us to align our thoughts, words, and actions. This harmony is key to living with integrity. When we live in this alignment, our voice reflects calm, confidence, and clarity. But when we're out of sync, when we're unsure, hiding something, or not being true to ourselves, our voice betrays us. This is why the Stoic ideal of living in accordance with nature means being truthful and transparent. Because any internal dishonesty will eventually show up in how you communicate. So the next time you're in a conversation and someone's tone shifts, whether it's a sudden drop in energy, a higher pitch, or an awkward pause, don't ignore it. These are subtle tells that something's off. Instead of reacting or pushing the conversation in another direction, stay calm and curious. Ask yourself, what's really going on here? By listening closely, you'll start to hear the truth between the words. Remember, tone shifts aren't always about deception. Sometimes they're about uncertainty or fear. But either way, they provide a glimpse into the internal struggle someone is facing. And when you can read those cues, you're not just hearing what they're saying, you're understanding what's really driving their words. In the end, being able to read tone changes is about becoming more in tune with the unspoken side of communication. It's about recognizing when someone's actions, words, and feelings aren't aligned, and using that insight to understand them on a deeper level. And by mastering this, you'll be able to navigate every conversation, meeting, or negotiation with a sense of clarity and control that few people ever achieve. Lesson 5. Watch them when they think no one is watching. Let's dive into another key aspect of understanding people, observing them when they think no one's watching. This is where you get to see someone's true character, not the version they want you to see. It's easy to act right when the spotlight is on, but when people think they're off stage, their real selves tend to come out. And if you pay attention in those unguarded moments, you'll learn more about them than any conversation could ever reveal. Think about it. When people know they're being observed, they behave in ways that conform to societal expectations. They're polite, respectful, and considerate because they know others are watching and judging them. But when they believe no one's paying attention, or when they think the person they're interacting with has no influence, they drop the mask. And it's in those small moments, when they don't feel the pressure to perform, that their real nature shows up. Take the workplace, for example. You might have a boss or colleague who is always professional, kind, and respectful when the higher-ups are around. They give compliments, show support, and make sure they come across as a team player. But the minute the boss walks out of the room, they start snapping at subordinates, cutting corners, or complaining behind people's backs. That's the moment when their true character is revealed. It's not who they are when they're being watched, it's who they are when they think no one is paying attention that tells you the most. This idea of who you are when no one's looking ties deeply into the principles of Stoicism. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is that virtue isn't something you display to win approval or to maintain your reputation. It's about who you are at your core, regardless of whether anyone else sees it. Stoicism teaches that the wise person acts with integrity, not for recognition, but because it aligns with their values. In Stoic thought, your actions, when the world isn't watching, are the true measure of your character. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This means living in accordance with your values at all times, not just when it benefits you or when someone else is around to see it. For a Stoic, virtue isn't a performance, it's a way of life. And that means being consistent in your behavior, whether you're in front of an audience or completely alone. When you observe someone's behavior in their unguarded moments, you're seeing how closely they live in alignment with their principles, or if they're just putting on a show. This also applies to relationships, whether it's romantic or friendships. At the start of any relationship, people put their best foot forward. They're polite, thoughtful, and considerate because they're trying to win you over. But if you want to know who they really are, pay attention to how they act in the quiet moments, how they treat others when they think you're not paying attention or when there's no one to impress. How do they act toward the waitress at a restaurant? How do they respond when someone who can't offer them anything approaches them? How do they behave when they're tired, stressed, or frustrated? Those are the moments when the social mask comes off and you get a glimpse of who they truly are. I had a colleague who was always the life of the party in group settings, charismatic, funny, and quick to offer a kind word. But when we were working late, alone in the office, I noticed a different side of him. He became short, dismissive, and impatient, especially when dealing with people who weren't in a position of power. That's when I realized that his charm was mostly for show. He was kind and supportive when it benefited him, but in the moments where there was nothing to gain, his real nature was much less generous. Stoicism teaches us that true virtue means consistency, acting in alignment with your principles no matter the circumstances. The person who treats everyone with respect, whether it's a high-powered executive or the janitor, is someone living with integrity. But those who only turn on the charm when it serves them are revealing a shallow, performance-driven approach to life. Now here's where this insight can really benefit you. By observing people in these unguarded moments, you can protect yourself from getting too close to someone who isn't what they seem. It's easy to get swept up in how people act when they're trying to impress you, but those moments aren't the full story. By paying attention to how they behave when there's no reward, you get a much clearer sense of their character. For example, think about how someone treats you when they think they're not being observed. Do they offer support and kindness when there's nothing in it for them? Or do they only show up when it's convenient, when others are watching, or when they stand to gain something? This is where Stoicism gives you a powerful tool. By staying calm, objective, and observant, you can see through the surface-level behavior and get to the truth of who someone really is. But this isn't just about spotting other people's flaws. Stoicism also asks us to turn this observation inward. How do you behave when no one's watching? Are your actions aligned with your values, even when there's no one around to judge or praise you? Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, wrote, "The soul should always stand ajar, ready to welcome the ecstatic experience." This means we should always be prepared to act with virtue, regardless of who's looking or what we have to gain. In the end, mastering the art of reading people secretly isn't just about uncovering others' hidden behaviors. It's also about holding yourself to the same standard. Are you living in alignment with your values, even in the quiet moments? Do you treat others with respect, not because you're being watched, but because it's the right thing to do? So the next time you want to understand someone's true nature, don't just focus on their public persona or the big gestures. Watch them in the unguarded moments, the times when they think no one is paying attention. That's where you'll find the real person, and at the same time, use this as a reminder to live with integrity yourself, acting in a way that aligns with your principles, whether or not anyone is there to witness it. That's the true essence of living a Stoic life. Lesson 6. Emotional reactions as windows to priorities. Now let's explore a key Stoic insight into human behavior. Emotional reactions reveal priorities. If you want to understand what truly matters to someone, pay close attention to how they react emotionally in different situations. Stoicism teaches us that emotions are the result of our judgments about the world. When someone has a strong emotional reaction, whether it's anger, excitement, or frustration, it's a clear signal that something important to them has been triggered. In other words, their emotions are like an open window into their deepest values and priorities. Here's why this is so powerful. Most people are skilled at hiding what they really care about. They might tell you that something doesn't bother them, or they might downplay their interests, but their emotional reactions often tell a different story. When you see someone get visibly upset over what seems like a small issue, it's usually because that issue is connected to something they value deeply, perhaps their pride, their sense of identity, or something tied to their self-worth. For example, think of someone at work who seems calm and composed most of the time, but then, during a meeting, someone questions their decision or criticizes their work, and suddenly they react with unexpected anger or defensiveness. That reaction isn't just about the criticism itself, it's about what the criticism represents to them. Maybe their sense of competence or authority is tied to their work, and any challenge feels like a threat to their identity. Their emotional response tells you that their work is deeply personal to them, and that's a priority they hold dear. This principle of emotional reactions, revealing priorities, is grounded in Stoic philosophy. According to the Stoics, our emotions arise from our judgments about what is good, bad, or important. Epictetus taught that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about those events. In other words, when someone reacts strongly to something, it's because they've judged that thing as significant in their life. Understanding this gives you an edge in reading people, because you're not just looking at their actions, you're understanding the values that drive those actions. Let me give you a personal example. I once worked with someone who was usually laid back, easygoing, and didn't seem to get worked up about much. But one day, during a routine project meeting, something small triggered them, a minor suggestion for a change in direction. Instantly, their tone shifted. They became defensive, their body language stiffened, and you could feel the tension in the room. What was interesting wasn't the suggestion itself, it was their emotional reaction. It became clear that this project was more than just work to them. It was personal. It represented something they were deeply invested in, probably their reputation or sense of accomplishment. That emotional outburst revealed their priorities, even though they hadn't explicitly said anything about it before. They hadn't told anyone how important the project was to them, but their emotions did. This is a powerful way to read people, especially when they're trying to keep their true feelings under wraps. It's not just negative emotions that reveal priorities. Positive emotions do too. If you see someone light up with enthusiasm or joy when talking about a certain subject, that's another clear sign that it matters to them. Think about how someone reacts when they receive praise for a job well done. Do they brush it off, or do they beam with pride? If they respond positively, it's a clue that recognition and approval are important to them. Their emotional reactions give you insight into what they value, even if they never explicitly say it. This also plays out in personal relationships. If you're in a relationship and notice that your partner gets disproportionately upset when plans fall through, it's not just about the cancelled plans. It might be that spending time together is something they prioritize highly. Their emotional response gives you a map of what they value most in the relationship. Similarly, if they light up when discussing future trips or experiences, it shows that creating shared memories is a priority for them. Paying attention to these emotional cues can help you navigate the relationship more effectively and understand what truly matters to them. Here's where Stoic wisdom becomes invaluable. Emotions are not random. They are direct reflections of what someone holds important. Stoicism teaches us to observe these reactions calmly and without judgment. When you see someone have a strong emotional response, instead of getting caught up in the drama or reacting to it, take a step back and ask yourself, what does this reaction say about their priorities? This detached observation allows you to see the person's values more clearly and helps you navigate the interaction with greater wisdom. But Stoicism also asks us to turn this lens inward. Just as others' emotional reactions reveal their priorities, your emotions reveal yours. When you find yourself reacting strongly to something, whether it's anger, frustration, or even excitement, take a moment to reflect on why. Is it because the situation genuinely matters, or are you letting your ego or insecurities get the better of you? Are you angry because your values are being violated, or because someone has challenged your sense of control or authority? This kind of self-reflection is key to mastering your emotions and living in alignment with your true values. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." What he meant is that our emotional reactions are often driven by our judgments about situations rather than the situations themselves. By examining our reactions and the reactions of others, we can uncover the underlying beliefs and values that shape our behavior. This is a powerful tool for both understanding others and for gaining mastery over your own emotional landscape. So the next time you're in a conversation or a tense situation, pay attention to the emotional cues around you. Whether it's someone's defensiveness, anger, or joy, each reaction tells a story. Ask yourself, what's really behind this reaction? What does it reveal about their values, their fears, or their insecurities? Once you start seeing emotions as windows into people's priorities, you'll begin to understand them on a much deeper level. And at the same time, apply this practice to yourself. When you feel a surge of emotion, whether it's anger, excitement, or frustration, pause and reflect. What's really driving that reaction? Is it in line with your core values, or is it something you can let go of? By understanding the root of your emotions, you gain greater control over them, which is one of the central goals of Stoicism. In the end, emotional reactions are not something to fear or avoid. They are valuable tools for understanding both yourself and others. By observing emotions calmly and objectively, you can gain insight into the priorities that drive behavior, making you not only a better reader of people, but a more self-aware and grounded individual. Lesson 7. The art of reading what's not being said. Lastly, let's explore a fundamental Stoic principle that can give you deep insight into others. The art of listening for what's not being said. People reveal a lot when they speak, but sometimes what they don't say, or how they behave when they think no one is watching, speaks even louder. Observing what's left unsaid and how people act in unguarded moments allows you to understand their true character. This concept aligns perfectly with Stoicism's emphasis on observation, self-awareness, and the importance of looking beneath the surface. Imagine a conversation where someone is saying all the right things. They're polite, agreeable, and seemingly engaged. But there's a tension, a hesitation in their tone, or a subtle shift in their body language. Maybe they pause for just a bit too long before answering a question, or their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. Stoicism teaches us to remain calm and observe without judgment, and in moments like these, that skill becomes invaluable. Instead of taking everything at face value, you learn to pay attention to the undercurrents, the things left unsaid. This brings us to the concept of living in accordance with nature, a core Stoic principle. To the Stoics, this means aligning your actions with the truth of who you are and the reality of the world around you. When someone's actions or words feel off or inconsistent, it often signals that they're not living in alignment with their true nature. Whether it's a friend, colleague, or partner, people often hide their true thoughts and feelings because they're afraid of being judged, vulnerable, or exposed. They may say one thing, but their behavior reveals another. For instance, let's say you're working with someone on a project and they're being agreeable, nodding along with your ideas. On the surface, everything seems fine. But if you pay close attention, you notice subtle signs. Maybe they avoid eye contact or they pause too long before agreeing. Those pauses, those slight hesitations, are often clues that something deeper is at play. Perhaps they disagree but don't want to cause conflict. Or maybe they have doubts about the project but are afraid to voice them. Here's where Stoicism teaches us to be patient, detached, and observant. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the importance of seeing things clearly without being clouded by assumptions or emotions. When you listen for what's not being said, you're practicing this clarity. You're not reacting emotionally to the situation, you're simply noticing. You're paying attention to the whole person, not just their words, and you're allowing yourself to be open to what's really going on beneath the surface. A classic example of this can be seen in relationships. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone who seems present, but something feels off? Maybe they're telling you that everything's fine, but their body language is closed off. They fold their arms, keep their distance, or avoid making eye contact. The words say one thing, but their actions say another. Stoicism teaches that the body, like nature, doesn't lie. If you can observe without attachment, you'll see the truth behind their behavior. It's also worth noting that this principle of observing what's left unsaid applies to actions just as much as it does to words. How often have you seen someone behave one way in public, but completely different in private? When they think no one's watching, they let their guard down, and their true character emerges. This is why, in Stoicism, there's an emphasis on integrity, on being the same person, with the same principles, no matter who is watching. True Stoic virtue is not about performing for an audience. It's about living in alignment with your core values, whether you're in a crowded room or alone in the dark. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminds us in his letters, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." What he means is that the stories we tell ourselves, the assumptions we make about what people are thinking or feeling, can often lead us astray. Stoicism teaches us to strip away those assumptions and focus on what's actually happening. What is the person's body language saying? How are they behaving when they think they're not being observed? What's missing from the conversation? By learning to notice these subtleties, you gain a deeper, more accurate understanding of who they are. For example, in a business setting, imagine negotiating a deal with someone who is saying all the right things but seems unusually tense. Their voice may be steady, but you notice that their hands are fidgeting or they keep glancing at their phone. These little actions reveal that they're anxious or preoccupied. Maybe they're uncertain about the deal, or perhaps there's an internal pressure they're not willing to share. If you simply listen to their words, you might miss this completely, but by staying calm and observing these subtle cues, you get a clearer picture of what's really going on. This also plays a crucial role in friendships and romantic relationships. People may not always feel comfortable expressing their true thoughts or emotions, especially if they're afraid of conflict or judgment. Someone might say, "It's fine," or "Don't worry about it," when in reality they're feeling hurt or disconnected. By paying attention to the things left unsaid, the silences, the body language, the pauses in conversation, you can better understand what's going on beneath the surface. Stoicism teaches that true wisdom comes from understanding human nature, and part of that wisdom involves seeing beyond words to the deeper truths they often conceal. But here's where Stoicism also asks us to reflect inward. It's not just about observing others. What are you leaving unsaid? How often do you put on a mask, say everything is okay, or avoid expressing your true feelings because you don't want to appear vulnerable? Stoicism challenges us to be honest with ourselves and with others, to live with integrity by aligning our words and actions with our inner values. Epictetus often emphasized that the only thing we truly control is our own behavior and reactions. Are you living in accordance with your nature, or are you hiding parts of yourself out of fear or insecurity? Recognizing what's not being said, both in others and in yourself, gives you an incredible advantage in life. It allows you to understand people on a deeper level, to navigate relationships with greater clarity, and to interact with the world in a more mindful, intentional way. By mastering the art of observing the unspoken, you cultivate a stoic sense of awareness, staying calm and centered even when others are caught up in distractions or falsehoods. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation or an interaction, listen closely, not just to the words being spoken, but to the things that are left unsaid. Watch for the body language, the pauses, the subtle shifts in tone. Ask yourself, what's really going on here? In doing so, you will see the deeper truths that lie beneath the surface, and you will understand others and yourself with far greater clarity. In the end, mastering the art of reading people isn't about outsmarting or manipulating others. It's about understanding human nature at its core, from observing how people treat those in lesser positions, to paying attention to their emotional reactions, to noticing what's left unsaid. Each subtle cue gives you insight into their true character. These methods help you see through the social masks that people wear and get to the heart of what really drives them. Stoicism teaches us that wisdom comes from observation, patience, and self-awareness. By staying calm and detached in your interactions, you're able to pick up on the signals that others often miss. Whether it's a sudden change in tone or the way someone behaves when they think no one is watching, these signs reveal more than words ever could. So here's the call to action. Begin applying these techniques in your everyday life. Watch, listen, and observe the people around you without judgment. Practice reading between the lines and staying calm in the face of surface-level interactions. Over time, you'll develop a deeper understanding of the people in your life, and more importantly, you'll sharpen your own self-awareness. Remember, the goal isn't just to read others, it's to live with greater clarity and integrity yourself. By honing these skills, you'll navigate relationships and situations with a calm, stoic mindset, allowing you to stay grounded, aware, and in control. Life becomes much clearer when you learn to see beyond what's being said and focus on what's truly there.